Video number 2.
Welcome back.
We needed to have like a
cohesive. What did we say at the beginning of the first one?
I don't know. It was awkward and we didn't really start it. Hi, I'm Shaina.
And I'm Nina.
And
I'm Nina Cavalcanti, and I will be singing Moonfall from the Mystery of Edward.
I'm 5'5" and I'm a percentage. By Party Trick Astrology Talent.
Yes.
So this is our second video, and it is the basics of how to read a birth chart.
Yes.
I feel like there are a lot of these videos out there, but I feel like we reference stuff so quickly that it just was like necessary to make our own.
Yes, exactly.
Because even in the last video, we would like throw around stuff, and I was like, fuck.
And this is the stuff, if you just reference these basics, you'll get pretty impressed.
Yeah.
Impressed by...
You'll be impressive.
You'll be impressive.
Words.
Yeah. You can look like you know a lot just by knowing the basics.
Literally, if you know more than a sun sign, you're impressive to most people.
Honestly, yeah.
So, the first thing, oh yeah, we're going to quickly touch on the sun signs, but not much. Just by element, because that's a thing that a lot of people don't know that I find hugely just important.
Yeah.
It's very important.
It also helps with just compatibility.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the fire signs, which is Aries, Leo, and Sag. I'm joking. Sagittarius, thank you.
Next was after fire?
Earth.
Earth, we have got Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn.
Yes, and then we have air, which is Gemini, Libra. This is so hard to do in this order.
Right?
Gemini, Libra, Aquarius.
And then water, which is Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces.
Yes. So that's it. And if you don't know about each individual sign, there's so many sun sign videos, and honestly...
Just read a couple memes and you kind of got it.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know, I feel like we need to get more info out there about other stuff that's not just sun signs.
Yeah, because sun signs you can find information on sun signs so easily. So
we want to take you through an Astro Cafe birth chart. Should I show a screenshot of our birth chart to help explain it? I think that'd be smart. Okay, but basically, here's what my birth chart looks like on Astro Cafe. So this is kind of similar to how yours would show up. Mm-hmm. And then this is...
And then this is mine.
Yeah, sorry. So we'll take one and try to describe it using that, because that's what we advise beginners to use. Now, if for some reason you know a lot more about astrology, you can use Astro Theme, which is what I love.
Or astro.com is also really good.
I hate Astro.
You don't like Astro?
No, we had this whole fight, remember, when we were teach their own. It depends on what you like. You can use astro.com. I really like Astro Theme because you could save 200 birth profiles, so it could be creepy and look up everybody's. But for you, random person that I'm assuming is a beginner, use Astro Cafe. Yeah. So first thing. I have my rant. Can I have?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is the thing that I how I explain to everybody when I'm first reading their chart. Your sun, okay. Let me focus. You don't just have your sun sign. When people know a little bit more about astrology, they usually know these 3 main signs, and that is the sun, the moon, and the rising. And when you think about yourself, and I'm sure if you're somebody who only knows about sun signs, you're like, well, this isn't me, there's so much more to me. And that's very true. You have a whole birth chart, which is what we were just talking about, but as a person, I think of it as 3 main layers. So you have your first layer, which is your rising sign, which is who you come across as your first impression, the mask you put on when you meet people, how you just generally kind of display yourself, as weird as it sounds, how you look, how you kind of can dress, it can influence that. It influences how people perceive you on when you're just walking down the street. And that's just on the surface level of you. That's nothing deeper. And so a lot of people, when I talk about their rising, they'll be like, well, I seem that way, but I'm not that way. And I'm like, yeah, that's because it's just your rising sign. That's not who you really are. And then you have your sun sign, which is the one that everybody knows. And that's your essence, your vitality, what's another keyword for your sun sign?
People say ego.
Ego, yeah. Just kind of the thing that you radiate, how you shine, and it just is always going to be a part of you. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't go super deep, but it's just kind of the general gist. When you're describe this person in 3 words, you might describe their sun sign a little bit.
It's not going to be all encompassing of who you are. But it's going to be a big part of your self-identity.
Mm-hmm. But another thing that I find is that when I tell them that they have these other signs. They're like, so does that mean I'm not a Virgo, or does that mean I'm not a Scorpio? And I'm like, oh no, people tell me that all the time. And I'm like, no, you still are, you just have these other influences. Like, you're still as much as a whatever you were before. But I don't know, I get that a lot actually. I think Scorpio is more than anything. Or like, does that mean I'm not fully a Scorpio?
Oh, because everyone wants to be a Scorpio. They don't know, like, everyone wants to be a Scorpio or a Leo, I feel like.
A Leo, really? No,
actually, no, only Leos want to be
love
Leos.
to be Leos.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have your inner you, which is your moon sign. So that is the thing that you only show to the people who you were close with. It represents your mother, it's your emotional life. It's just who you are when you're alone, or just kind of like, I don't know, like the inner you, the real you.
Yeah, the inner you.
How you kind of...
The innermost layer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So like how you act around your closest friends too. And so those are like your 3 main layers, and that's what a lot of people have like in their bios if they have like 3 signs.
And
or...
their like Instagram bios?
Yeah, I see that everywhere on Twitter and stuff. Are you kidding me? Or like just stuff like that. So that's basically my spiel.
Yeah, people also, when they're saying like, oh, I don't relate to this sign, like I don't relate to Aquarius, but I relate to Sagittarius, then it could be their moon sign that they relate to.
Yeah.
Or people who think that they're a cusp and it's really just their moon sign. And they're like 7 degrees.
They're like very idealizing the fact that they just want to be, anyways. So yeah, okay, so now I'll take you down the Astro Cafe. So there's 2 sides.
Yes. She's going to take you through the left side, and I'm going to take you through the right side. Now, the left side has to do with the planets, which move slower than the houses. That's why you can get more information from the left side, only knowing your day and not knowing your exact birth time, but you really need to know your exact birth time to look at your rising and the exact house placements. So, and also you can share a lot of the same planets, or like your moon, like if you're born on the same day as someone.
Yeah, like I know a bunch of people with my same birthday, but our risings are different, so we're very different.
Yeah, it changes everything.
Okay, so right after your moon is your Mercury, and I'll just quickly take you. Mercury? I've never said that before. Mercury. That's a big thing I hate when people are like, you're Mercury? I'm like, the fuck are you? You've got a fucking liquid you in there, bitch. Okay, so Mercury is just how you think, how you communicate, and yeah, it's basically Mercury. And then you have Venus, which is, it's the female, whatever. It's love, it's how you express love, how you charm, beauty, creativity, art expressions. It's just everything lovely, I think. Like if you have a strong Venus, you're very pretty.
Yeah, and a strong Venus would be like something that either is, well, I don't think there's such thing as an exalted Venus, but maybe it has a lot of aspects to your sun. Like if your sun and your Venus are the same, then you can have like more beauty.
Charm. I find a lot of charm with people, like very Venusian people. Yeah. Like Venus in the first, just naturally beautiful. And it's just like, I think that it kind of blesses any house it's in. Yeah. Like even my Venus, which is in the 6th, which is pretty shitty, I still can find something good about it. Yeah. Okay, so then you have Mars, which is if oh, and also with Venus, if you know like the birth of Venus, like that is Venus. Like, you know what I mean? That encapsulates it. And then you have Mars, which is the more masculine energy, which is like anger, aggression, how you kind of work, your sexual expression, and anything kind of like outward and aggressive and passionate. Your drive. Yeah, your work drive. That's and so it's also what's called a Malefic Planet. And so basically it's
it's just not the best energy to have around.
Yeah. And that's not to say that like when you're lacking in Mars, you're great, because that's not true.
And everyone has a Mars.
Everybody has all this stuff.
Oh, you're lucky because you don't have a Mars. Like everyone has all the malefic planets. Yes. Even if they're intercepted, like they're still going to cause some shit.
And even if they're in a good placement, there's still going to be a lot more downfalls no matter what. And we found that it's a lot harder to find a good Mars placement, and they usually
a good Mars house placement.
And they usually I should say a good Mars house placement, yeah. But they usually stir shit up that they're around. And then what's the one after that? Is it Jupiter? I think so. Or is it Saturn? We might be going out of order here, but I think it's Jupiter. Or is it Saturn? Okay, then there is Saturn, which is like the shit planet, is what I always say. And it's just responsibility, rules, regulation. What's some more words? Give me these adjectives, girl.
Restriction.
Yeah, and just basically
it's a lesson
time.
planet.
It's time. Yeah, it's like you think of Father Time again. And it just basically, wherever it's at, it kind of poisons.
Yeah.
It's where you need to learn stuff, and wherever it is, the things don't come without time or without age.
Yeah, and like we said, your moon can kind of represent your mom. Certain things about Saturn can represent your dad, but also certain things about your sun and their placement.
But that's, yeah.
But more
usually
Saturn,
I think, honestly,
is a good representation of dad.
Of your dad.
And although sometimes it switches with people, like some people find their dad more nurturing, and that's where you find their moon like relates more to their dad.
And then so the next is Jupiter, which is a great planet.
Yeah,
it is so great. It's just it expands anything it's in, and it's just luck by just great, just things
Vitality.
Good will come where your Jupiter is, and I don't know of a Jupiter that gives you anything bad. And I mean, Jupiter in Capricorn's pretty shitty, but it still will have something.
Yeah, you have that, right?
Yeah. It's just time. But basically that's Jupiter. It's not and then we're getting into the outer planets. So the generationals.
Yes.
That usually starts with about Saturn. They move slower.
And what happens when they move slower is that you share the same placement as a lot of people around your age range. So that kind of shows for like some generational differences.
Exactly. So that's why we have like the baby boomers are like this, because it's kind of more to do with their generationals.
Yeah. But slower moving planets are like Saturn is 3 years is about how long it takes to get out of one sign and move to the other, whereas Neptune takes like 28 years or something like that.
And Pluto's like 30 to 40, and Jupiter is like 5 to 6, right?
I think so.
We might be a little bit off, but you get the gist. You don't need to.
Yeah.
And then we have Neptune, which.
Uranus.
Oh, Uranus is next?
Yeah.
You're right. Uranus is next. Thank you. Which is just the weird planet. It's all about. It also rules like science and technology and that kind of thing. It's kind
of like the more.
Change.
It's like the progressive, change.
It's all about change.
Change, it's a revolutionary
It's a progressive
planet.
thinking, kind of. Yeah, revolution, that's perfect. Just all the oddballs, like, that kind of thing. And it probably will usually express, the house that it's in will express, like, where you, like, change, where you kind of have odd thinking, where, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it can, like, prove to, if it's in a house, like the 4th house, or if it conjuncts your Venus, it can...
Conjuncts is when they're like
when they're they're the same sign at the same degree. It can prove instability in those areas of your life because it's so
rapid
moving and changing, even though it's a slow moving planet.
And then Neptune, right?
Neptune.
Okay, which is the planet of disillusionment, because like I was disillusioned that it was after Jupiter. And dreams and fantasy land and just foggy, watery mess.
Yeah.
It's not technically a malefic planet, right?
No, but it can...
It can fuck shit up.
Yeah.
It can be a beautiful thing because it also relates to the arts and your creativity, your imagination, and that kind of stuff. But it just deals a lot with
it's
escapism.
Tricky. Yeah, it's tricky because it doesn't deal with things in this world. So it can give you a lot of like great psychic abilities but when it comes to dealing with things
everyday
of this
chores.
World, it can kind of fuck shit up.
And then we have the final planet, which is Pluto, which is the 3rd malefic planet. And Pluto is all about destroying and regenerating things. So
That's scary.
It's I need more adjectives here. It's like it deals with like the occult,
regeneration. It kind of deals with the occult.
And wherever it's at, you basically like whichever house it's in, that's kind of where you're quickly to destroy things and redo it. And
that's why it's malefic, because it will destroy whatever it that's
touches.
It's another thing that causes instability.
But it also, when you grow it up, it's usually stronger.
Yeah, exactly.
So it needs to be destroyed a lot of times. It's very generational.
So it's almost like not in our consciousness.
So, That's that. And now she will talk to you about houses.
Okay, now
So-
houses.
You have to describe houses first.
Okay.
I like to say each planet needs a home. Needs somewhere to live. Cancer
cute.
rising. Needs somewhere to live. It needs a little place to go snuggle out to.
Well, what I like to say about the houses is that it's kind of a track of your development. And if you don't know, your ascendant is your first house. So the first thing you
They're
do...
like interchangeable names.
Yeah, they're
Ascendant,
interchangeable.
rising, and first house are the same thing. So if you ever hear us say those three terms, it's the same.
It's the same thing.
sign. We usually say ascendant though, or do we say rising? No, we usually say rising.
Kind of both.
Fuck,
Rising,
sorry.
ascendant. It means the same
It
thing.
means the same
rising,
thing.
ascendant.
Yeah.
And that has to do with like whatever was like rising on the eastern horizon, I think, at the time that you were born. So
We're astrologers, not astronomers. We're also not even astrologers.
we can call
We can pass.
We can call ourselves
Not
astrologers.
professionally.
Like I'm not gonna put it in my Instagram bio or anything, but so it's your development, right? So you pop out of the womb, and the first thing you have is an identity.
Yeah.
The first thing you have is an identity, and your parents perceive you and give you your rising, basically. Like, this is a crazy story. My mom, like, when I was born, she called me moon face in Portuguese, so it was, like, cuter than just, like, moon face. She would sing this song to me in Portuguese that's, like, I used to be darker when I was born. Like, dark girl with watery eyes, take your eyes out of the ocean, come see what the world
my
has to
God.
offer you. Like,
Okay, so it looks like it's going to be a common thing in this video where our camera heats up.
but I remember where I was. So anyway, I was saying my mom calling me moonface and all that. That's very literal, but maybe if you have a Virgo rising, your parents might immediately think like, oh, this baby is so smart. Like, our baby's so smart. We made such a smart baby. So that's kind of like first house. Second house is when you kind of start to come in more to yourself and you realize the things that you can do. I think Alyssa Sharp like once said like you figure out your hands and what you can do with them, and that kind of like, it's a house of self-worth and money. So you realize how you can make your money and attain self-worth. So it's like a good place to see what a good career for you would be. For me, like second house in Leo, I realized just like being on stage gave me so much self-worth, and I was like, I decided I want to be an actress like very early on. So I was like, this is how I'm gonna make money. I'm gonna be on stage or like be in front of the camera or like write sketches and stuff. And then third house is like education before you graduate high school.
Lower education.
Yeah, lower education. I don't like calling it lower education.
No, I do.
But you know,
but that's like the term,
lower education and siblings and community. It's the Gemini house.
Neighborhood.
Yeah, neighborhood. So yeah, that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
You have your identity, then you have your sense of self, and then you
Your
realize
items,
where you
everything
fit
that you
in.
touch.
Yeah, you realize where you fit into the community. Then
Look at
fourth
his
house. Fourth house is your house of home. It's kind of interesting that your community or neighborhood comes before your home, but whatever. You realize where your roots are. It's a family house. Whatever's in there gives an indication of
what your family life was like.
what your family life was like. And then fifth house is a house of creativity, which includes kids, because you create your kids.
Yeah, anything you create.
Anything you create. So whatever sign or whatever, if you have a planet in there, anything you make is going to be a very like...
Have those qualities.
Like, if you have Scorpio in the fifth house, you're going to make a scorpionic book or scorpionic child or...
It also represents a lot, I think, a lot of times, like, because it's like creative expression, but it's also kind of like parties and fun.
Yeah, because it's the Leo.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that it kind of also talks a lot about how you kind of are towards like the partying life. If that, you know what I mean? I think so.
No, yeah.
Okay.
It's a house of fun.
Yeah,
really.
it is.
So like, what's fun to you?
Yeah, that's a better way of thank you. Okay. That's how I want to say it.
So now that you've had fun, time to go to the sixth house, the house of work, routine, and health.
And your daily
your
schedule.
daily routine.
Oh, that's routine. You're right.
So whatever, it's kind of a house that you would rather not have planets in.
Yeah, you definitely would like it to be an empty house.
Because it's very particular.
It also,
you know?
a lot of planets in there will add anxiety.
Add anxiety, yes.
Yeah.
Because you don't want your routine or your like
daily life
to be too packed. You don't want to be overworked with planets in there. Yeah, I think that's enough about the sixth house. So that's half your chart. Then you move on to the seventh house, which is your other half. It points to marriage. It points to the things that you don't recognize in yourself, but that others will bring out in you. If you have a lot of...
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, when people ask, like, who am I looking for in a relationship, we pretty much always, the first thing we'll say is their seventh house sign. The sign that rules their seventh house.
Especially if they don't have, like, a packed seventh house. Because then it's much more clear cut. If you have a packed seventh house...
Which means there's lots of planets in there.
Yeah, lots of planets in there. You're not going to be able to access those planets very easily. It usually takes someone else to show that in you. And you'll see people with lots of... not necessarily, but... maybe people...
I find that people with an empty seventh house have a lot of more confidence in the way that they are. Like, the way that they act naturally. They'll, whether it's good or bad, they're just more comfortable with it, I think.
Yeah.
You don't want planets in the seventh house. I don't think you want anything in there.
Maybe, like, Jupiter is nice.
I mean, I don't mind having my moon in there.
Yeah.
I'd rather not have Jupiter in there. Like, not that I think it, like, doesn't do bad to anywhere, but the only planet that I don't mind having in there is the moon. I think it makes you empathetic.
Yeah, that's true.
But you probably would, like, I'd rather have an empty seventh house.
Yeah. No, another world.
Okay, let's keep going, girl.
Then, so you have your seventh house, your house of marriage. You get married. You've got to figure out all that financial stuff. Because the eighth house is the house of inheritances, but it's also the house of death and regeneration and hidden things like the occult, deeper spiritual things. People with a lot of eighth house influence will think about death a lot, or just have more of an awareness of their own mortality.
And it's also to do with religion too, doesn't it?
Yeah, religion. Okay, so really appropriately, the battery died in the middle of the eighth house, but we regenerated it and we're back and better than ever.
It's been an hour?
Yeah, like 40 minutes.
The exact length of a challenge episode.
And some tea. But what I was saying was, so the eighth house, someone with a lot of eighth house, or like their sun in the eighth house, might be attracted to religion, but more often than not, it's not,
It's an interest, maybe.
It's an interest and not necessarily
a devotion.
The beaten path of religion. Like, there are those types of people who say, I'm not religious, I'm more of a spiritual person. Yeah. Speaking of spiritual people, next is the ninth house, which is higher education and beliefs. So, and travel kind of fits into that.
It's a lovely little house.
Yeah, it's a nice place to just like have
chill
things.
And have things in.
Yeah, like if you have Saturn there, maybe you won't go to college, or if you have like one of the more offbeat signs or Uranus in there, you might not do like the normal 4-year college medical degree type of thing. But it's cool. It's a nice lovely house.
It's lovely.
Then after you've completed your higher education, it's time to move on and your travel. It's time to move on to your 10th house, your house of career and public persona. So this is why some people appear different on social media, because they're really showing off their 10th house, their public persona. And it's the Capricorn house, career, work. Yep.
It's your midheaven. It's also called your midheaven.
Yes, it's also called your midheaven.
And people with like a lot of like good planets, like their sun in the 10th house, are going to be a lot more, I think, easily successful. It just comes with ease and stuff, and or if you have like nice planets in there, you'll have a pretty Instagram. Like
true. Or Venus can push you to like a more artistic career.
Yeah. It can also show what kind of thing you want to do and stuff.
Yeah. And then once you got your career and your public persona, you need a network around you for your career.
So they say.
So they say.
And you get better at that.
That's the 11th house. The 11th house just kind of shows like the type of people that you like to be around, associate yourself with. Friends.
It's also humanity.
Yeah. It can show what you give to other people as well. Like having some planets in there could show that you're very devoted to giving to other people.
Mm-hmm. I read that like if you have like a poorly aspected planet or like too many, you can be the opposite of like, because usually it's supposed to be like an abundance of friends really with people, but if it like gives too much of anything, it's like you can be a loner.
But that's the gist of the 11th house.
But honestly, normally people with 11th house, like positive planets, they're usually really good with people. Yeah. And they have like a lot of friends everywhere.
But I see like what you mean for the disconnected thing, because Aquarius has that thing where, I guess because it's ruled by Uranus and that's like such a far out planet, you can end up feeling isolated. So if you have some of that Aquarian energy, it can go either way. Mm-hmm. Next is...
last but not least,
the 12th house. The 12th house, like, I've heard it called so many things, like the house of self-undoing, the house of dreams. And if you look at it as far as your development, it's like the house right before death.
Everything you can't touch.
Everything you can't touch. So if you think of it like the house before, death, it's kind of that spiritual house. It's ruled by Pisces. Dreamy, mystical. Escapism.
Major escapism.
If you've like, no matter who or what kind of person they are, if someone has like personal planets or like their sun or a lot of planets in the 12th house, they have something that they use for escapism.
And it just depends on the person though. Yeah. So not always the same.
Yeah. It can be like the like general thing is like, oh, they're an alcoholic or they do drugs, but really like they could just like sleep, binge watching TV shows
or food even.
Yeah, or like fantasy novels.
Oh yeah, like Disneyland.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. Or like what was it, mermaids?
Or
even music.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Or like kind of fangirl behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's a very psychic.
Yeah, psychic
position too.
Mm-hmm. So it's very interesting. Those people are like, almost you'll find that they don't really care as much how they look.
Yeah,
because they're not as in touch with this realm. Mm-hmm. They're like way out in outer space.
Also, a thing about 12th house people is that even if the person is the most like sociable, like they love being around people, and a person that you know, they will always need time to recharge alone. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, I know somebody, Emma, who's a triple Libra, but her son, so she loves people. Like, she's such a people person. She's so good with people. And she loves to, like, she's just friendly. But she needs time to go home and recharge and nap and reboot. And then she's back and ready again. But she needs that time still.
Yeah, even Bella with her moon in there.
Mm-hmm, that's very true.
And sometimes you won't be able to see it because they have a Gemini rising or something, but they are those kinds of people who need to
and it's
recharge.
Not that they hate people.
Yeah, and it's not a bad thing at all. It's just a fact of life.
But it is a really hard place because what is it? It's one where you can't like access them.
Yeah, it's almost like I wouldn't say it's like having an interception, but it's almost like the 7th house. It's hard to reach.
Yeah, because it's in a different realm.
Yes.
So that's the 12th houses in the birth chart. Mm-hmm. And then if you're looking at Astro Cafe, right next to it at the end of after the sign, is a degree.
We've been talking a lot about, if you have a planet there or if you have lots of planets in the house. What puts a planet in the house is generally
the degree.
Well, if you look at the sign of the house, if you have a planet with that sign,
let's take an example.
Okay.
Let's take my chart and what's something that should be my Mercury looks like it would be in the 7th but is in the 6th.
Because her 7th house is ruled by Capricorn and her Mercury is in Capricorn. So you would generally think that whatever if you have a planet that's the same sign as your house ruler, that planet would be in there. Mm-hmm. But
so the degree of my 7th house, my Mercury is at a super low degree. It's at like 4 or something, and my 7th house is at like a moderate degree of like, I don't remember, but it's some.
It's the same as your rising, so 10.
Oh, duh, of course. So it's at 10 degrees. So because of the way that a chart works, an actual birth chart, my Mercury falls into my 6th house, because if you think, let's say this is 10 degrees, and then this is 10 to 29, and then this is Sagittarius, okay, because Sagittarius is before Capricorn. It sounds so hard to explain, but once you get it, it makes sense. How can a 4-degree Mercury fit between 10 and 29 degrees? It has to fit below it. So instead, it looks like it's going to fall into the 7th house because it says Capricorn. It doesn't. And I thought for so long that my Mercury was in the 7th house and that's how things worked. But that's not how it works. It falls in the 6th house because of the degree. It kind of goes like that.
And if that's a little confusing, a basic rule of thumb is you look at the sign, and the planet is in there if it's in a higher degree than the house ruler. And if it's at a lower degree, it's in the house before.
It's never in the house after.
No,
that's
never.
not a thing. But it can be in the house before it. You just really have to pay attention to the degrees of it, and it takes a while to click, but once it clicks, it makes a lot of sense, so hopefully that makes sense, and if not, then
Oh,
you're
it is
fucked.
in the house after if like you have a double.
You get interception.
But we'll make another video on interception.
But I think that covers
the basics.
solid, even more than the basics.
Yeah.
We talk a lot, but I mean, I think it's the basics of like a birth chart. And any questions, we'll answer them.
Yeah.
The 2 people watching. Hi, Mom.
Sean's.
Anyways, that's all for this video.
That's all.
Bye.
Bye.